But really, the primary emotion I felt was betrayal.
We will talk about Emily's jealousy in a minute and how that fueled a turning point in her life. But if you haven't seen the first two videos about Emily Anderson on this channel, please go back and watch those before you continue this one, because it's very important you have the information and context to understand what will be shared in this video. We left off in the last video when Emily had been helped with her health issues by Mr. Gothard when he provided $1,000 worth of medications at no charge to her, when her and her mother had visited the IBLP headquarters in August of 2011. It is strange that Emily has claimed in numerous interviews that Bill Gothard groomed her for years before she came to IBLP headquarters with her mother. Yet, in an interview, she admits he didn't even remember who she was from one year to the next.
Every year, Bill would approach me at the conferences.
So he remembered you. He would see you and remember who you were.
He wouldn't actually.
Oh.
What's interesting is he never remembered who, at least he pretended, or, he acted like he didn't know, because I would have to introduce myself and tell him my name and everything.
So Emily and her mother visited headquarters in August of 2011, but only a few months later, in April of 2012, Emily went online to the Recovering Grace website, a slanderous online venue, and read a story of someone who alleged that Bill Gothard molested them. When reading that, she began to think about her interactions with Mr. Gothard and thought he must have abused her too. After all, he had rubbed her shoulders when she and her mother were in his office, and in the process of rubbing her shoulders, he had touched her hair. He had said kind words to her and made her feel special. This also triggered a kind of jealousy in her that made her feel betrayed that he had behaved similarly to others, which meant maybe she wasn't as special to him as she thought.
But really, the primary emotion I felt was betrayal. And I would say it might be a similar feeling to a way a woman might feel that's maybe dating a guy and he's like completely showering her with affection and you think he's head over heels for you and he has all these pet names. And then you find out later that he's dating 3 other women. He calls those other women all the same pet names. I mean, that kind of feeling of betrayal. I kind of felt like I had been emotionally cheated on.
She already had problems with the relationship with her father. This jealousy was a turning point for Emily. Once this happened, she wrote a message on Recovering Grace, and that started contact between her and a group of people who were hell-bent on taking down IBLP and Mr. Gothard. And they were very glad to hear her express the doubts about him that came when she read that story on their website. Once she wrote that message on Recovering Grace, Mr. Gothard read it and could see the message was being used by the slanderous website to completely misrepresent the interactions he and Emily and her mother had. He called to try to understand what he could do to remedy the situation and, of course, wanted the message removed, or at least to have the context of their interactions corrected to reflect the truth of it. This was also a perfect example and crucial in realizing how Emily purposefully communicates in order to craft a narrative she wants the reader to believe. She didn't include context and wrote the message under an article about sexual harassment. Doing that made the reader believe that Bill Gothard had been sexually inappropriate with her too. In a message from Emily's mother to Mr. Gothard, she said this, quote, "First of all, neither Emily nor I ever felt like she was being sexually harassed in any instance. The fact that her post was made under the original article about sexual harassment gives people the impression that that was what happened," unquote. And another, quote, "Basically, something was being assumed and read into, which Emily never intended to convey," unquote. I think her mother has a misconception about what Emily intends to convey, while at the same time not looking like she is lying to her mom. Her mom knows what really happened and knows the context, so Emily's writing was very crafted to make sure her mother would not see anything that wasn't actually true, while at the same time conveying a certain message to the readers by leaving out key information. Also in a letter to the Recovering Grace administrator, her mother wrote, quote, We feel that the summary article's statement on sexual harassment about Emily being inappropriately touched was misleading," unquote. Emily and her mother wrote to the gossip website asking that they remove the message because it was being taken out of context and causing others to believe a false narrative about their interactions with Mr. Gothard. But of course, the Slander's website didn't want it to be removed and argued the point, trying to persuade them that they should leave it posted. After all, it was a useful tool in the false narrative they were creating, and the administrators of the site told them that they were just being manipulated by Mr. Gothard, as if they don't know what really happened and the administrators do. Emily's mother then wrote this, quote, "I can honestly say before the Lord that I don't feel like we are being manipulated into asking for this," unquote. She had already made very clear to Recovering Grace that their team had taken Emily's comments out of context and used them to suggest sexual harassment that was not true. Emily began to read more and more gossip on the internet and to think more and more about this, and began online friendships with other women who were in the same boat as she, who had eventually come to believe that they had been molested by their fathers, Mr. Gothard, and others. Many of these allegations were from repressed memories, and they were similar to Emily's circumstances. In 2014, Emily's parents formally separated, and her already volatile relationship, anger, and resentment toward her father grew. As you already saw, she was also hurt by Mr. Gothard, feeling betrayed that he had treated other young ladies in a similar way by saying kind words and making them feel important. She found a counselor to help her deal with the turmoil in her life. She started to have thoughts that she and her counselor believed were repressed memories, that Mr. Gothard had touched her thigh, had held her hand walking down a dark hallway to his office at night.
One night at headquarters, he said, "You belong here. I love you. You know that, right? Your father doesn't love you, but I love you." He played with my hair, and he rubbed my shoulders, and he put his hand on my thigh. The building was empty. Bill said, "Why don't you come up to my office?" He took me by the hand. We started to walk through the dark hallways. And just as we opened the door, I saw that there was still a male staff assistant sitting at the computer doing some work. And Bill was startled. He did not expect that man to be in there.
And now is when she started to claim that her father had molested her as well. She had not made this claim before she went on the Recovering Grace website. And of course, Bill Gothard must have molested her too.
Shortly after I arrived home from headquarters, the abuse at home got significantly worse because Bill had made promises to my dad. My dad was expecting me to submit more to his authority.
This was confirmed when she found a counselor that validated all of her stories as sexual abuse. She began to tell more stories about how she was a victim and an innocent member of an evil cult, and claimed Mr. Gothard sinisterly asked her to come to his office at the Indianapolis Training Center. And here's another example of her leaving out information to make a story seem sinister. She never mentioned that this particular office at that location was one with ceiling-to-floor glass wall panels, so anyone could look in at any time from any angle. She now used words that fueled the drama and claimed she was a survivor with the words cult, victim, sexual abuse, and predator, which along with her newfound friends brought about more and more intense stories. All their repressed memories paired with false narratives, which continued to fuel the frenzy of sexual abuse claims online. Her repressed memories took over, and she began to claim more and more firmly that her father had molested her, and so had Bill Gothard. Emily is one of the plaintiffs in the failed repressed memories lawsuit that was filed against IBLP and Gothard in 2015, which told the world that the leader of IBLP, the Duggars' supposed cult, was a sexual predator. All of the stories from that lawsuit were completely based on repressed memories and come from very similar circumstances as the one I'm describing now. All of them similar to this woman's story. Next time, Emily joins the lawsuit and tells another tale about why she became a Jane Doe.
At the time, I felt that I would be in danger, so I joined the lawsuit as Jane Doe number 3.
Please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.